In this video, I'm going to be operating on Pat Thoony's Quincy and Torch Lake Railroad. Pat models the Quincy and Torch Lake in On30. So the Quincy and Torch Lake Railroad was located in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, and as Pat tells us, it was a copper mining operation. It was basically a railroad that was built to haul copper ore down from the mine and down to a processing plant on the lake. And the model that Pat tells us is that it was rocks down and coal up, meaning that they would haul copper ore down, unload it to be processed, and in those same hopper cars, they would load coal to bring it back up to be used in the mines. So here's the area that we can see in the Upper Peninsula that the Quincy and Torch Lake was located. Now you see a map here of the Quincy and Torch Lake, and on the left side you can see where the mines are, where it says Quincy Mine. And then the railroad would proceed downhill. You can see there's a passing siding kind of right in the middle there. And it would go all the way down to Torch Lake, which is where the ore processing plants were. And Torch Lake was connected through Portage Lake, which connected to the Kewaunee Bay of Lake Superior. And that's where the ships would go through. So the heart of the operations is here at Quincy, and here's where the engine terminal is, and there's a yard here, as you can see down here on the right. Here's another look at the yard. The engine house or the roundhouse is there in the foreground. And what you see here is the locomotive moving on the right is the first train out to go down to the mine. And here is that train here with this fully loaded train. Now we'll get back and look at some of the yard operations later on here, but at first I was just kind of watching and trying to stay out of the way and take some videos. And again, when I'm at these sessions here, my goal is to be an operator first and take videos second. So here we're up at the mine here, and you can see that was the mine switching job. Forgive me, I don't know all the terms of the jobs here, but you can see here's one of the mines. Now we're back at the yard here, and another train is getting ready to be made up here, and what they're actually making up is those two cabooses in the front is going to be my my first train. So my first train was a passenger train. This is my locomotive number 2, and you can see I'm pulling my passenger consist over this long trestle. And on the Quincy and Torch Lake, the passenger train is basically two cabooses hooked together and run down from Quincy down to Torch Lake. One of the nice things about the layout here is that these backdrops, if you've ever been up to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, this is pretty much exactly what it looks like. These backdrops really give you that feeling of being up and overlooking the lake. So here I'm pulling into a passing siding. I'm going to overtake a mine job that's waiting for me. And there you can see on the left is the ore train there, and I'm coming around on the right. Now, locomotive number 2 has an interesting tender. You can see it's a winterized tender. It's actually got a cover over with some hatches, and then obviously there's a big snowplow on the front. So here I'm going over a giant fill. This used to be a trestle here, and one of the trains that you'll see later on is called a pour rock train, and that's either non or low ore bearing rock that they choose to dump and fill in trestles here, and this is one of those, and we'll actually be dumping on here later on. And then I'm coming through the second trestle here. Then you can see on the right, this one's being filled in as well with what they call the pour rock. That's a standard gauge trestle over the top. The Quincy and Torch Lake interchange with the Duluth, South Shore, and Atlantic.
But you can also put back in the mill number 2 and make room behind the mill with a long lead tractor.
So I'm actually making my way back here. I've turned my locomotive and I'm going back over that trestle. I didn't film that part there, but here you can see I'm making my way back up to Quincy. I'm going around another ore train. This train was the one I was actually passing earlier up at the yard. This is not the one that was already sitting here. So here I'm leaving this town here. This locomotive is built from a Bachmann On30 260.
It's hard to get 12 people that you're really, like you said, you kind of pick a crew to get 5, 6, 7, 8 guys are really easy to get. Just don't, you know. And you might invite some of those with some other guys, but you want everybody to kind of be in camaraderie, such a good thing. And 12, like Tom Gager's one that said, really, you have 12 operators? Do you know 12 people you want to have in your basement at the same time?
So you can see across the aisle there the roundhouse in the yard where this train started at. Now I'm making my way around the peninsula here and I'm about ready to go across that long trestle again.
I can barely go get the man. Yeah. Even to go get water out of the kitchen, sometimes you'd be like, I really thought I had terminal cancer and not finding it wasn't too late. That's what I thought in my own brain. But at least I had a lot of excess to eat off of for a while.
Well, so I broke my back doing something. So I was on for a week and a half. I lost 20 pounds.
You look awesome.
But man, I was just,
You can see some neat town scenes in the back there. It's really fun operating on a fully scenic railroad, especially one that's in On30. All the big trains really give you a feeling of mass when you're running them, and they run really smooth. I believe the track he's using is microengineering. So I actually made a mistake here. I am going on the scale track. I should have been on the right-hand side, but I did not check my turnout before I got there. So here we are back up at the mine, and you can see the mine train is actually getting ready to bring down 3 loaded cars. From what I understand, the mine job up here will bring down 3 loaded cars at a time on the steep grade. So this is the yard engine here, and then I'm going to be coming into the yard here to drop off my so-called passenger cars and get ready for my next run. So one of the nice things about Pat's layout room is he's got a lot of artifacts from the actual railroad. He displays them really nice here. It's kind of like being in a museum. He also has a really nice crew lounge built that has a lot of nice things on the wall, and really fun place to hang out and a lot of things to look at. Pat actually works on restoring real Quincy and Torch Lake equipment, so he visits the area and works on those as well. So here's my first train that's not a passenger train. This is the Pour Rock train. You can see that long string of side dump cars there. And I'll be going and parking this train and dumping hoppers, designated number of hoppers at each one of the trestle sites. And for now, what Pat's using here for loads is carved foam, the kind of foam you might find in like the Bachmann freight car and locomotive boxes. And what's kind of nice is to unload them, you just poke them with a skewer and lift them out. Actually, it works really well. So here I am stopping at, I just finished dumping actually at the first trestle site here. So you can see I've dumped the first cut of cars, and now I'm going to pull ahead to the second cut. And what I do to simulate this is I just stop at the trestle site and take one of those uncoupling skewers and pull out the loads. From what I understand, this cutting site here was not originally a cutting site, and Pat decided it'd be better to clear out this area of track here so it's easy to reach, and he just made it look like a wood cutting scene and got rid of all the trees that were here.
fabric I was going to use. I was cleaning out the garage just for, let's see, I've had this for probably 6-8 years. I've never used it. I'm not going to use it. So away it went.
You got lights on the engine.
That's it. But then the guys can't seem to do
So
their
as I
work.
pull onto this trestle here at Torch Lake, I'll be stopping in this area here and removing the loads that are in the remaining cars here. That I had to wait for that locomotive to clear up. So I've dumped my loads and I'm going to actually back this entire train all the way up to Quincy here. This was kind of a questionable operation and wondering if these small cars would stay on the track as I pushed that long caboose, but everything worked out fine and we made it all the way back to Quincy.
Oh yeah, you haven't seen that. Yeah, it's all Scenic din and everything. Yeah. And these I moved back. They were pure. I moved back. The rock piles. The other night I moved them all back. I got run this track.
Recently, Pat's locomotive fleet was featured in the short line and narrow gauge Gazette.
Yeah. Well, the half the car load, the difference was when you put 6 here.
Here's number 6, which is a real beefy 280, and I think this is riding on a Broadway Limited frame, and the boiler is scratch built. From what I understood, it's scratch built out of a piece of PVC pipe with a whole lot of brass details. And number 6 is actually on the scale track, and it's going to be loading or getting the weight of the cars here, and you can see the scale operator in action there. And I'm going to be weighing a train later on, and we'll cover kind of what I'm doing there. So this is out in Pat's crew lounge. He's got some nice pictures, and actually the cab side for number 6. He has the walls finished really nicely. So this is actually the coal dock down here. This is where the ships will be loading coal into the empty ore cars. And those structures are massive when you're standing there. They really tower over the trains. So it's a real fun switching area. And what this is a switchback here. And as I'm going around here to the left here, it'll actually be going up a grade to a switchback, which then takes us up to that upper level where you can see that ore train is sitting up there. And here you can see the yard that the switchback comes down from, and up there's also a turntable. So here's another shot of the coal docks here with these cranes that travel on these rails here. And what they do is they unload the ships into these giant bins, and then they can load those ore cars.
So
I was thinking operationally.
So we got here another job here that I'm watching here, working at the Quincy yard. Number 5 is another highly modified On30 engine.
Once it's modeled, it's done with that. You can't load grain, right? Especially if it's loose. If it's bagged and it's a tight bag.
If I remember right, I think Pat said he's using TCS WOW decoders.
So I mean, that's kind of that was the question I was thinking about.
Well, you can have both.
That will.
So number 5 here is going to back up on the turntable, turn its train. You can see the loaded coal cars down there in the foreground here. And I'll be pulling that back up to Quincy so they can deliver that coal to the mine.
Look into that.
So back here on my next train, I'm going to be pulling an ore train from Quincy down to Torch Lake. And one of the features Pat has is he has a scale house here. And all the ore that's leaving Quincy gets weighed here on the scale tracks. So the way the scale works here is the scale is actually a dummy scale, but in that basket that's attached to the fascia, there's a dice. And when you leave Quincy, you're given a list of your train there and how many cars you have. And what you do is you stop each car on the scale and you roll the dice, and whatever number is on that dice, that's the hundredths of pounds. So for example, you might have 56,300 pounds of rock. And you just go down and record the number. So, again, if you have like a roll 5, it'd be 56,500 pounds. And this is just a fun thing that Pat does. He says he keeps track of it in a spreadsheet to see how much rock they actually hauled in the year. So after weighing my train, I'm going to be leaving here with my trusty mogul number 2. And you can see I've weighed all my cars. I actually had one extra car.
Basically, like a little few inches wider. So if it has an issue,
See, I'm rounding that end of that peninsula.
But now I'm like, I already took the side off this one. It's skinny. Now I gotta figure out what else I can do. I think I know what I'm gonna have to do is pull that off, take the ground, cut a corner inch, and then fix it. I'm not gonna do that.
And I'll be coming into the passing siding here.
Number 6 has to go here, and nobody can get tools in the door to fit it. At least, but number 5, people waiting on mine, it can't. It doesn't fit it. Like I said, because this cab is wider. So I'm like, well, I guess I'll have to take this and shave it all. I can see your feet cut the door.
That's where I need to go.
So we can see here, locomotive number 1 is pulling ahead of me into Torch Lake. Had a really nice consist of cars here.
This is true.
I'm waiting back on the passing setting. I was overtaken by that train, and I'm going to wait for this other returning train to pass me before I can come into before I can come into Torch Lake here.
All right, I've lined this far switch if you want to get out on that end.
No, I don't need to.
I'm gonna go, okay? I know. It's gone. You see?
We can see big number 6 leaving Torch Lake. That first car there has coal in it, and the rest of the cars are empty. So this is the mine job. It is pushing one of those loaded cars of coal and then some empties up to the mines. Now we're back over at Torch Lake, watching number 6 still working in the yard to build its train. And of course I'm back at the mine here. These mines just tower, they just go all up to the ceiling. Very impressive.
A Broadway Limited. No, that one's a Bachman Spectrum. Number 6 is a Broadway Limited. This is a Broadway Limited boiler.
Okay.
He's got them all, the pieces and parts he cut. And so Narrow Gauge Gazette wrote an article on the first 3. Now they got an article they're going to publish on the second 3. And they did one on operation down here.
Yeah.
And they're doing one on the plow. And then GMR has been putting this out. It's been, I just can't believe it's happening.
Yeah.
And then I
Good stuff.
just got the gold, the titanium to build this stuff. So it's going to be interesting.
You're not getting it out of Minnesota.
So trains are kind of backed up here at the end of the session, and but nobody really minded. It was just fun to watch all the other trains running around while you had a chance, and go out to that nice crew lounge and put your feet up. And we see number 6 making good time over the big rock fill.
They got a big plant over here. It's called the Wheaton Power Plant. They use natural gas pipe. And they're going to redo all the motors and turbine and all this stuff.
And there I am sitting on the left.
They finally
So I finally get my chance to leave and come into Torch Lake here.
in a hallway somewhere.
Be going over the large fill again.
Get the body out here. No, he's gotta go sign his belt.
Oh, really?
You said 5, right?
Yeah, it's at 4. Whatever.
I got 4:30, a little after 4:30, but
So this train here is actually backing up the upper leg of the switchback at Torch Lake. And there I am arriving at Torch Lake.
The things that are not are like
I'll check with them on the schedule.
Joe should know what the schedule is as far as between sessions.
That's what I'm going to have to ask them. And I think they sent out a tentative.
Now,
So I had
for
to
the
wait
freight,
for a little bit here while the
honestly, something
other
I do on
crew
my
finished up
railroad
some
is
switching
I
on the upper
have
part of the
a similar
switchback
idea
here
of
at
a
the
freight.
yard.
And the guy I have
What I do
starts and
here
I
is
do.
that
Yeah,
when
which
you
one
come
take
into
one?
Torch
You
Lake,
know,
you
and then
basically
basically the
break
guy would
down your
have three,
train
right? He'd have
and you
finish this
put the
job.
designated
Yep.
cars at the
Okay, here's the
designated
next one is pick
plants.
up
So
these
not
cars.
all the
Okay,
cars
here's
in
the
one
third
train
one
go
is,
to one plant.
you're over at Quincy now, let's bring it back. So I mean it's dual.
So as
When
this
did we actually start running? I didn't check
locomotive
this
number
out.
one
It was
moves out of my
1:30-ish
way here, I'll be
before
able
we
to
got here.
shove my
I was
remaining
at
cutted
1:30.
cars all the way
Yeah.
back around
So,
to plant number two.
Guys died, they're like, okay,
And I just dropped off those
Yeah.
cars back there,
Well,
running light with my caboose past the first processing plant. Unfortunately, the session came to an end after this. Our day was running late and we had to get back to the Twin Cities. But I want to thank Pat for having us over to operate. The layout's really nice, fun to operate. The trains run great. And as usual, thanks for watching my videos here. And you can follow me on my railroad at Mans Creek Railway in ON3 on Facebook. Thanks for watching.